Okay, good afternoon, members of the board, members of the public here and observing us on YouTube, and staff of the city. My name is Jason Marks, Chair of the Board of Ethics and Campaign Practices. We are calling to order our regular monthly meeting for Wednesday, July 9th. It is 1:01 p.m. And to begin with, we need to call the actually, I don't need to call the roll since we're an in-person meeting. Let the record reflect that all members are present. We have a quorum and a completely full dais here. With that, we're on item 2, review and approval of the agenda for today's meeting. Is there a motion or any concerns or comments about the agenda?
I'll move that we approve the agenda.
Motion by member Caffrey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by member Selvin. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the agenda is adopted. Next item is the minutes from our meeting of June 11th. Has any member need any more time to review those minutes? Are there any comments or changes proposed to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
Member Caffrey has moved the approval. Is there a second? We got. Thank you, member Selvin. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I was absent from that meeting, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Can the record reflect the abstention of member Cuniff? And that would bring us to item 4. Introduction of new board members. We are pleased to have Mr. Levi Green and Clayton King joining us. I think what I would like to do is have us just go from Mr. Cuniff across and everyone just introduce yourselves, say a couple of sentences about your background, and so we can begin to get to know each other, the new members, and then after that, I think staff will be talking to us a little bit about the basics of serving on the board, which will be an introduction for the new members and maybe a refresher for us. So with that.
Hello, I'm Sean Cuniff, and I live in the Summit Park neighborhood in Albuquerque. I'm an attorney. I work at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and before that, I worked for the state Attorney General.
Afternoon, my name is Levi Green, lifelong resident here in Albuquerque, current neighborhood association president for Wandabo Hills, Votero. I've been auditing for roughly 5 years now for a semiconductor facility. So yeah, excited. First meeting, first pass at this. So nice to meet y'all.
Lights on, that's a good sign, right? Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and guests, my name is John Kelly. I am a retired New Mexico attorney. I practiced for 45 years here in the state. I am the former U.S. attorney for the state of New Mexico. I served 2 terms under President Clinton. And I completed I did 10 years as a civil rights lawyer back in the 70s. And I retired from the Monroe Sperling firm about 6 or 7 years ago. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hi, I'm Christina Caffrey. Also, well, except for undergrad, lifelong resident of Albuquerque. I live near, I'll call it the Cherry Hills Library. And I also am an attorney. Currently, I work in-house for New Mexico's largest licensed cannabis company.
No objection to that, Yvonne.
No. Let the record reflect, no objections. So, Jason Marks, 24-year resident of Albuquerque on the west side. Licensed attorney from 2004 until January of this year. Well, I'm very happy to be retired from practicing law. And I did from 2013 through last year, I did business law and utility law mostly, a little bit of estates and some miscellaneous stuff. And let's see, before that, I was with the PRC up in Salem, up in Santa Fe. And in addition to serving on this board, I was recently appointed to the Lodgers Tax Board in the town of Edgewood, which is in connection with my actual business these days, which is operating a brewery and a couple of tap rooms.
I'm Susan Selvin. I retired to Albuquerque about 7 years ago, having no previous connection at all. I was originally a special education teacher director in San Francisco Unified School District. When my kids all graduated, I joined Peace Corps for the first time. In Africa, the ambassador said, Susan, you should join the Foreign Service. So he nominated me to Foreign Service, and I became a Department of State Foreign Service officer, a management officer, working mainly with local staff and contracting. 9 years in Africa, 5 years in the Middle East and other places.
Good afternoon. My name is Clayton King. Very nice to meet all of you. Pleasure to be here today. I live up in the high desert. I don't know if I'm being too loud. High desert neighborhood by the mountain. Born and raised here in New Mexico, at least most of my life. Spent part of my time up in Colorado. Went to school down in Texas, and then decided to come back to New Mexico, to the land I love, which is nice. Been a small business owner now for about 6 years, about 5 years, almost 6. And mainly my background's in commercial real estate, brokerage and development. So thank you again.
Hey, Mr. King, Mr. Green, thank you and welcome. Welcome to the board. And with that, let's move on to the next item, which is overview of our roles and responsibilities. Are you going to do that one, Mr. Rocha?
If Clerk Watson can help me just a little bit on it.
Yeah, I'll probably chime in. And Mr. Chair, I don't know if you'd like the members of my office who are here and then also the legal department to introduce themselves as well.
Sounds like a good idea.
So I'm Ethan Watson, City Clerk of the City of Albuquerque. My office, as we'll discuss in a moment, the staff's the Board of Ethics. We also manage a lot of the day-to-day in terms of campaign finance and elections and public financing in the city of Albuquerque. However, I mean, any violations or alleged violations would ultimately come before the board for adjudication. And so I guess we'll go in order of like seating and then come back to Matt, but Ian's actually not in our department. So, but Ian, do you want to talk about who you are?
I'm Ian Alden. I'm with the City of Albuquerque's legal department. I'm legal counsel for this board.
I'm Cristobal Rocha, program admin for the Office of the City Clerk, and I am your staffer for this board.
And I'll just chime in that Mr. Rocha also is our main sort of candidate interface as well. And so he's engaging with a lot of the candidates in the election on the day-to-day basis about, you name it, filings and how the computer system works and
Art signs.
the art signs and everything in between.
Matt Jackson. I'm an attorney at Piper Hanson, Mullins and Baker. I'm provide services as outside counsel to clerk's office on principally election related matters, including when the board has asked for advisory opinions this year.
And then I'd also like to introduce Chris Peck.
Hi, Chris Peck, Deputy City Clerk.
I'd fill in for Ethan when he's not around and help him otherwise, so.
Members of the board, Chair Marks and Ethan asked me to put together this quick presentation, so should be fairly sweet and short. Essentially, most of you have been on the board, but because we do have two new members, wanted to review some of the core responsibilities that the board sees before it. One of the biggest parts that you'll see as a board member is hearings of complaints. And determining whether those violations are in fact a violation of the Code of Ethics or the Open and Ethical Election Code or the Elections Code. We have a lot of construction in our building. Yes. You'll conduct hearings, issue facts, findings of facts. You can impose fees and public reprimands. And am I forgetting anything there, Ethan?
I think the one thing I'd like to just clarify there is this is one of the most important things I think the board does. However, probably 7 years ago, I think the board and the clerk's office found that it was hearing a lot of complaints over seemingly de minimis issues or issues where the complaints were legally insufficient. And so roughly 7 years ago, the board and the clerk's office worked together to institute a complaint diversion process. And now all complaints prior to submission to the board are reviewed by me to see if they comply with the board's rules. If they do not comply, I reject them. However, the complainants can always appeal my rejection to the board. And so I only flag this because the board, you may occasionally, what tends to happen is as soon as someone files a complaint with us, they go to the Journal or a KRQE and tell everyone that they filed a complaint. But that does not necessarily always mean that it is going to be immediately referred to the board for a hearing.
Today, we will hear an advisory opinion that was drafted by Mr. Jackson. So far, this is our third this cycle. And so essentially, it does come to Ethan. We send them to Mr. Jackson for the first draft, and then we share them with the board. As board members, you can make edits, you can reject it, you can do whatever the board sees fit. These are typically in regards to officials, lobbyists, candidates. For the most part, candidates, it seems to be the biggest request. Some MFCs, measured finance committees, will also ask for advisory opinions. I think all of the ones this cycle have been through MFCs. And there is a specific time frame. Mr. Jackson has to prepare those advisory opinions within 14 days of the referral, and the board hears it within 30 days. Anything I missed there?
No.
Okay. The board does issue rules. You have a copy of it in the binder today. This was recently updated back in January. As staff, we do work on proposals of those rules, which is then board and makes any edits again, final proposals, or can create a subcommittee to make those rules on their own. And then this applies to all board members, but there is parts of the codes of ethics that does require certain provisions to be a board member. One of them is you have to be a qualified elector, you have to be registered in the city of Albuquerque. You cannot be a city official or an employee of the city. You can't be related to a city official as well. You can't be a candidate or a city official within the last 2 years of your appointment. You cannot participate in political campaigning, volunteering, donating, endorsing, and cannot be a lobbyist or have interests that come up before the board or campaign businesses. And again, just you cannot publicly endorse the candidate or specific opposition.
You are allowed to vote.
You are allowed to vote. Please vote.
Please vote.
Yes,
And that's about it.
that's
Yeah.
about it. That concludes my presentation.
It's very, very convenient. Anybody hit you up for volunteer or donation. Well, Can do it.
Are there any questions from board members about past history of the board or board duties? That those do generally outline the matters that have typically come before the board.
Just one thing. Oh, sorry.
Member Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this the current set of the rules of the Board of Ethics and
Yes.
campaign practices?
Yes, Member Kelly, that's correct.
Has it changed in the last 12 months?
Yes, we did mostly a restructuring of the order for the rules, made it so that it actually flowed in a better understanding for the members of the public. And Ethan, I can't think of the significant changes that we made.
It was largely a restructuring. I mean, the board's rules for historical reasons did not really align with the way that campaigns or complaints flowed through the process. And so we moved a lot of things around within the last year to make it more readable really to the public.
And Member Keller, we also create a computation of time, which was not in the rules initially, and so this left it ambiguous of when certain actions needed to be done.
May I follow up?
Please.
Am I right in thinking that this set of the Board of Ethics and campaign practices rules they were not put before a governmental body for approval apart from this board? Is that accurate? Are they going to city council or any other body?
Yes. I would have to double check that. We do send something. I would have to get back to Mr. Chair and Member Kelly. I would have to get back to you on that. We do send some things that the board does to the city council for receipt be noted. I do not know, sitting here at this minute, if that is one of the things we send to the council.
But to the extent that you might send it to the council, though, it would be, I'm surmising, it would be a copy of a duly adopted rule or set of rules.
Yes, Member Kelly, my memory is not very good. I was going to say it's not perfect. It's not very good either, but my recollection is that after the board adopted the current version of the rules, that staff did transmit it to council or the clerk, but it was a notification, not that there has not been an action by the city council, for example, to ratify this or do that. And it's further my understanding that the charter gives this board the ability to promulgate rules. So we do have that authority.
Thank you.
Some questions?
Yes, and I'll chime in. As I recall, in the recent revision process to these rules, they're mostly they're procedural rules, and then the substantive law, I will call it substantive provisions that we enforce come mostly from the city charter, which is approved by the council, and then so our internal rules are what we revised recently.
And I think I have one in terms of just logistics or practicalities for the new members. It's been the practice of the board, as long as I've been on it, that during the odd number of years when we have municipal elections, the board will schedule meetings monthly through November, and from time to time cancel those meetings if there's no pending business. During an election cycle, we may schedule special meetings if we have to hold a hearing on a complaint. And then in the even number years, when there is no electoral activity, I think we meet one time. It's two times, Mr. Rochester. So it's pretty light schedule during the off years. During the on years, it depends on the volume of complaints. This year has been, seems to me, been lighter than most since I've been on it, but you know, knock on wood. So that's what you can anticipate is we have a monthly meeting scheduled the second Wednesday of the month through November. And if we should get some issues before us that require a hearing, and it doesn't fit in with that schedule, I'll be working with staff and I will consult with members on availability, and we'll try and do the best we can to have a quorum to get any issues that require a timely disposition taken care of, addressed. And then, you know, we are very cognizant of your time, and we'll try to avoid having a meeting just if we don't have anything to do. And then the last thing I'll say on that is we have been conducting most of our meetings by Zoom for the convenience of the members. If we do have a hearing, absent something that I can't anticipate, I would want to do that in person. So we will likely not meet again in person this cycle unless there are hearings.
Mr. Chair, one other duty I thought I would bring to the board's attention that could theoretically come up is the board, following some revisions in 2022, now does serve as basically the appellate body for my decision to certify or decline to certify public financing candidates. And we haven't actually had one of these yet, but historically, those functioned on separate tracks. Because that created procedural headaches in 2021, we decided to merge them. And so now, after I've made the decision to accept or decline to certify a candidate for public financing, the candidates can appeal that decision to the board. So that is theoretically one of the type of action that could come before the board, just to close that out.
Can a competing candidate appeal?
You know, I think there's probably arguments around who has the standing to appeal that the board could probably spend some time thinking about in the future.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions, discussion about the high level overview? Hearing none, I
Mr.
would.
Chairman,
Oh, yes.
very quickly, is the 2025 rules that is in my binder and the other members, are those the current rules of the city clerk for the election code, et cetera?
Yes.
And is it accurate to say that they have this copy has been in effect for some period of time? Would it be fair to say a year, for example? Or have they changed more recently?
February.
He's asking about the city clerk's rules, not ours.
We completed rulemaking, and Mr. Chairman, Member Kelly, we completed them in February.
Okay. No objection. Thank you.
Thank you. And my recollection is there may be a red line version of the two different rules. If you want to see the specific changes, staff can provide that. There is certainly a lot of material to digest, and we all did not digest it in our first meeting. This document, this is similar to the online curriculum. Is it still the staff's request that the members do the online?
It is, yes, Chair Marks, certainly optional for board members. Mr. Green and Mr. King, I'll send you the information on how to get started with those modules. 45 minutes, there's two different, both of them are 45 minutes. Just how to be a board member, compliance with OMA, ADA, some just general how to be a board member with the city of Albuquerque.
I highly recommend it. It's-
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I don't believe you identified the document that you're holding,
Oh,
except
that's
to say
great.
that this document.
Thank you. This is a document entitled Leadership Guide, Boards, Councils, Committees, and Commissions. And there is a corresponding, I don't know if I'd call it, it's a video training or two video trainings that we can access and that the city is asking all of us, if we haven't done it already, to access and go through the training and get a certificate. But particularly if you've never served on a board and what we're doing here seems common sense, but you want to know a little bit more about Robert's rules and what a motion is and so forth. It'll give you that background. And then even more importantly, we are subject to the Open Meetings Act, and that's a state of New Mexico requirement that we do our business in public and in view of the public. And that means that, among other things, that a quorum of us, which at this point would be 4, could not meet at my bar, for example, and discuss the business and then decide what we're gonna do at our next meeting. That would be illegal.
Oh, but it would be fun.
But we could meet there and discuss sports or something like that. And then the other thing is that it requires that not only we do it in public, but we give adequate notice to the public what we're gonna do. So if we don't have something on an agenda and you want to discuss it or take action, you need to contact me or staff in advance of the meeting. We could talk about things that are not on an agenda, but we couldn't do anything about anything. And we'd want to let the public know in advance in our agenda. So you'll find out a lot of that information here in the leadership guide and the online trainings, and I recommend those as a good entry point. And then as we get into any particular business, or issues or controversies, that'll be an opportunity to get more familiar with the substantive laws that we try to administer. With that, I'm going to move to item 6. We've been getting a periodic report from the Office of Internal Audit about the status of their reviews, particularly of the qualifying contributions for the public financing. So we're going to be.
They should be here.
Hi, Chair. This is Vanessa speaking.
Vanessa,
First
if
of
you
all,
could take your camera off.
may I trouble you to do
Wait,
this?
they're not showing.
Says
May I
she's
trouble you
talking,
to-
but we're not hearing it.
May I trouble you to turn on the
I see.
sharing on the back end?
Okay, Vanessa, can you try talking again?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. May I trouble you to please turn on the sharing ability on the back end?
Okay, you should be able to share now.
Perfect. Thank you. Give me one moment. Okay, can you folks see a PDF?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As always, we went ahead and put together a very high-level overview of the in-progress QC examination. And as you folks know, the city councilor period runs from June 2nd through July 7th. So it actually ended a couple of days ago. And with respect to that, our office is shifting to the final stages, meaning that the final report will be released closer to the end of July. So what we have for you today is a concrete update on the results for the past 3 weeks. And during this time, we had 8 candidates that were pursuing public financing, and our office was able to verify a total of 41 QCs. through the efforts of 217 attempts. A total of 2 red flags were identified, and each instance related to out-of-date address records. So once again, nothing of monetary concern. And then as for week 4, where we currently are, those results are being vetted and our office will relay them to the city clerk this week. So as always, true to that, very high level, sir, we respectfully open for questions.
And just a point of clarification, has your office completed the verification for all the mayoral candidates who are in the public financing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So no, we're in the progress of going back to those initial 9 weeks during the mayoral period. So while indeed that it has come to an end, our office is basically going back and re-examining those 9 weeks to ensure that we verified 27 for the active candidate. We started off with probably like 7 mayoral candidates, and as we all know, we only have 1, so we're just going back for candidate Timothy Keller to ensure that we indeed verified 27 unique to each 9 weeks.
Any questions or discussion from the members? Okay. Thank you, Vanessa.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that will take us to item 7 on our agenda, which is the discussion and potential action on advisory opinion 03/2025 requested by ABQ Fire Pack. And that will be
It's not in the binder.
It's not in the body. Oh, here we go. Here's here.
Mr. Chair, are there any more copies of the advisory opinion? He and I are sharing. Thanks, Mr. Jackson.
Everybody have it now? Oh. Back to you. Okay. Can you give us an overview of what the request was and with reference to opinion 02/2025, and I just want to call your attention, probably saw it.
Do I have it? Oh, yeah, I need to change that.
Yeah. Okay, this is, so we're looking at 03/2025, but it's closely connected to 02.
It is, and because there are, thank you, Mr. Chair,
Thank
and for the benefit of the new members of the board, this opinion, like the opinion 02/2025, relates to some disclaimer requirements that are specific to Measure Finance Committee's independent expenditures and coordinated expenditures under the election code. Specifically, if the party that is producing campaign materials, well, first the party that's producing the campaign materials has to include a paid for by with the name of the entity and its chair, and then the top 5 donors, which is followed by a list of the top 5 donors making the largest aggregate donations over the previous 12 months. And then for if one of those top 5 donors or more of those, one or more of the top 5 donors is a non-natural person, right? If it's a here for this it's a union, but it could be any non-natural person, corporation, nonprofit, 501c4, etc. The top 2 donors contributing over $1,000 to the primary donor also need to be disclosed, they're called secondary donors. And opinion 02 to 2025 dealt with the scope of that. How do you figure out who's a donor, what's a donor? And the general rule that the board adopted in that advisory opinion is that donor is to be understood in the ordinary sense, that it is somebody who gives without consideration, that it is somebody who provides a gift without expectation of a commensurate return. This request from Albuquerque Fire PAC seeks clarification on opinion 02/2025. There are 3 parts to the request. The first 2 parts are really not actually asking the board anything, so the draft does not purport to provide any advice on that. It simply takes the materials that are provided in those parts to answer the questions that are actually submitted as part 3. But for part 1, the requester asserts that it has a single funder, and that is the Albuquerque Fire AAFF Local 244. That's not in the request, but that's the union, and therefore they don't need to disclose any further donors. And that seems to me to be uncontroversial. I don't see an issue with that. The second part is, I'd say, mostly argument. There are some facts offered. The PAC is concerned about the contributors to the union's benefit programs. And it identifies 2 of those programs in particular, Members Assistance Program and a Survivors Fund. It says, do we need to disclose donors to those benefit programs or other benefit programs? And the PAC further notes that the principal contributors to those funds are the city of Albuquerque and then Bernalillo County. So in the request for clarification, which is part 3 of the request, the first question posed is whether the organizations, the union's membership dues, should be considered donations under the rule, under the disclaimer rule. And then second, if they are, would that disclosure be based on the actual donor that gives or presents the funds, i.e. the city of Albuquerque or the Bernalillo County, the one who's actually making the payment of the dues? And then third, whether the funding to non-political benefits programs with separate accounts, some of which are governed by the CBAs, should be classified as secondary donors for campaign material disclosure purposes. And finally, how to address the potential confusion that could arise from identifying the local governments as donors to the union. So the draft opinion, in short, first says, would opine that where the membership dues are a uniform amount that are paid by all members, whether directly or via paycheck deduction, in exchange for the benefits provided by collective bargaining, those dues are not donations for purposes of the campaign disclosure rules for the reasons set forth in the advisory opinion 02/2025. And because that question is answered in the negative, the draft does not opine regarding the second question. With respect to the third question, the payments by the city and the county into the member assistance program, those are contractual obligations. They're not donations under the election code and the accompanying rules. Now, with respect to the survivors program or any other program, the request doesn't really provide enough information to ascertain what the nature of those is. And once we get to question 4, you can see why that creates some uncertainty as how the board can best advise the requester on that. The draft simply says there's not enough information to provide advice. Regarding the potential confusion, the draft notes that the New Mexico Constitution has the anti-donation clause, which prohibits governments, including county and municipal governments, from donating to private enterprise. There are certain exceptions to the anti-donation clause, and the jurisprudence on the clause is, I'll say, a little messy. But it exists. The clause exists. It says what it says, and because there is a presumption of regularity, the draft would not speculate that either the county or the city is violating that clause. So payments by the local governments are not likely to be considered donations. But again, it's uncertain on the facts that are presented in the request. So I'm not going to talk much about the first question, which is the union membership dues, because we really did deal with that at some length when we were discussing advisory opinion 02/2025 last month. It seems fairly straightforward that they are those are not donations, they are payments for consideration, which are the benefits of union membership, and should not be regarded as donations for the purposes of the disclaimer rule. Now, the uniformity and the consideration are important, of course. An organization cannot circumvent the rule by saying, oh, these are dues, and it just so happens that Joe over here has paid, you know, $150,000 in dues this year. But the basic principle is consistent with that set forth in the prior opinion. One note, and I did expand a little bit in the draft on the identity of the payor, which is that the withholding of dues from the paychecks of union members, that is also a matter of contract. And the nominal payer to the union, which is the city or the county, and depending on which CBA unit is at issue, which CPA is at issue, doesn't really matter, for the same reason that when, you know, if you're a W-2 employee, or were at some point if you're retired, your employer doesn't get the credit for the withholding that they send to the federal government on the income tax. That is, you know, you're the person who paid that, not your employer. Now, the third question is probably the trickiest, and that involves these ancillary programs. In opinion 02/2025, the board advised that it didn't matter whether funds were contributed for some purpose other than political, for two reasons. One, if they're simply just provided without restriction, then that could of course be used for political purposes. And even if they are earmarked for a specific purpose, that potentially frees up funds that would otherwise be used for that earmarked purpose to then be used for political purposes. In addition, it just makes things a lot more easily administrable when money in, if it's a donation, it needs to be disclosed without fighting over, well, it was earmarked for X, but it was used for Y. It was earmarked for X. X is political or X isn't political. All those questions go away if you just have a fairly simple and easily administered rule. And within the context of that rule, you still have the question of whether something is a donation or not. Again, with respect to the member assistance programs, the CBA that the union has, both with the city and the county, expressly require the governments to pay into the membership assistance program. That's a negotiated bargain for benefit. That's not a donation. The Survivors Fund, I was unable in preparing this draft to identify the organization and architecture underlying whatever the requester means by the Survivors Fund. There is a statutory firefighter survivors fund at the state level, but it's just a wrongful death, it's a death benefit. And the request seems to contemplate something that's a little bit more expansive than that, right? Helping with unexpected medical bills, et cetera. So it's not clear, A, what the Survivors Fund is. B, how that program is funded. And then, of course, the request doesn't limit its scope to just those two benefit programs. It just offers those two as examples. And without the facts, it's difficult to tell whether this is, is this something that was given for consideration? Is there fair value? Is this a donation? That's the fact-bound question that the board addressed in opinion 02/2025. And the draft would hold the board to that prior advice. And then the last section simply discusses what I already discussed about the anti-donation clause, that absent facts tending to show to the contrary, it doesn't seem sensible to presume that the city or the county are violating the New Mexico Constitution. With that, I'll take any questions that any members may have.
Member Cuniff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure I kind of understand the construct here. So it's a question of essentially who funds ABQ Fire PAC. That's what constitutes the secondary donor?
Mr. Chairman, member Cuniff, the question of who funds ABQ Fire PAC directly is not an issue based on the information provided in the request. The ABQ Fire PAC, according to the request, is funded solely by the union, by the firefighters union. And for the purposes of the advisory opinion, that fact is taken as true. The question is whether those who then contribute to the union, whether through dues or through contributions to the union's benefit programs, would then be secondary donors for purposes of the secondary donor disclosure requirement.
They're not, aren't they 3 levels removed, right? We have the PAC, we have the union, and then the members pay dues to the union. So if we're just going to the secondary level, the analysis doesn't end at the IAFF local. Why would it go the next step to analyzing the relationship between IAFF and its members?
Mr. Chair and member Cuniff, for purposes of the disclaimer rule, the IAFF, the local, would be the primary contributor, and then the contributors to the local would be the secondary donors, assuming that what they were giving was donations. Whereas the disclosing entity is the PAC.
I appreciate that clarification.
So essentially it prohibits someone from concealing their support for a measure of finance committee by running it through the primary donor. So like say I wanted to support whatever IAFF is supporting, and I obviously can't as a member of this body. I can't write a check for $2,000 to IAFF and then, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and they add that to what they're taking over to their PAC. It would have to be disclosed, and even in a less fraught situation, it's not legally prohibited. But just somebody who doesn't want their identity to be known as supporting a particular finance committee. You have these indirect donations, and that's what the city ordinance is designed to provide transparency over. It doesn't get to third level, but it does say at the second level of indirection, you need to disclose who's actually providing the money, and that's what we're concerned with.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that sort of explanation of the underlying policy. I think that maybe more what I'm getting at, and I think this is a fine piece of work, thank you, Mr. Jackson, is sort of the unique relationship between union members and unions. And, I think with the last opinion that we did, I felt like with the electronic billboards, it was also kind of hard to shoehorn it into the existing regulations. And I guess my sort of underlying discomfort here is that this has an air of absurdity to me. The suggestion that someone joins a union because they're a firefighter and they want collective bargaining representation, and somehow that could be construed, as a political action. Or, I mean, the underlying policy here is that it's construed as someone trying to engage in politics anonymously. And so I don't know, I don't think that, right, and there's no easy fix for Mr. Jackson on that, and it's not really covered by the rules, but I guess what I'm looking for is there a way to dispose of this in a way that says, because of the inherent nature of the union member relationship, it just does not sort of fall within the scope of the intent of the secondary donor rule. And maybe there isn't a principled way to do that, and if so, so be it. But I just think that for the board to provide real clarity in a context like this could be useful to sort of completely put it to bed. And I guess you mostly have with respect to the question of union dues, and there's maybe more ambiguity with respect to the benefit funds. But none of that stuff in the real world, in the individual actions that union members take, and New Mexico is a closed shop state, I think, meaning that people, if they're in a union workplace, have to join the union, which takes it another step away from being a political act, because there are other states where that's not true, or where members can pay what's called a fair share and not even contribute to the political actions of the labor organization. I don't know if there's a way for us to get there. I'm not trying to complicate things needlessly, but those are just my various thoughts.
If I may, Chair Marks, member Cuniff, with respect to the membership relationship, I do believe that the draft addresses that, because that financial interface is the dues, and this would opine that those are not donations and do not need to be disclosed. I am not a labor lawyer, but my memory is that the CBAs do not require membership as a condition of employment. I don't believe we're a right to work state. We do permit closed shops, but I'm not sure if that's applicable in the government context. But leaving that aside, once you get into the benefit programs, again, the way that the opinion proposes to deal with this is that this is fact bound. If you've got a contractual benefit, something that's provided for under the CBA, that's not going to be a donation. If you have something that is not, that is funded by gift, by donations, whether from members or from the general public, then you may have a secondary donor requirement, and that goes to the purpose of the secondary disclaimer rule, which is that it's essentially a straw donor prevention rule. And you can't, and I'm not saying that the requester did this or that the local that funds the requester did this, but it would be improper for an organization to set up a benefit program that was in fact just a repository of cash to be used for political purposes. That's going to depend on the facts of each donor to a disclosing entity.
So a follow-up on the benefit program. So you could not figure out if the benefit program allows only members to pay into it, or if it could accept donations or contributions from the public, or were you able to determine that?
Gerald Marks and member Caffrey, I was not able to conclusively determine that. I did find websites that I did not take the trouble to authenticate, talking about events to raise funds for the Survivors Fund. None of them addressed the question of, what's the organic document creating that fund? Is that something that's within the union's constitution and bylaws, which that may matter and it may not. It's difficult to tell without reference to those documents. Are they in the CBAs? Didn't appear that they were. Is the request actually referring to the statutory fund, but not quite stating it's the benefits that that fund provides accurately. It's just not clear.
I think though that the opinion provides enough guidance for them to take it back and look at their internal documents and say, this is a donation because nothing was received in return versus this is from dues, so we did give them something in return.
And if I could, I'm gonna weigh in, of course I can. Ms. Caffrey, I think the question presented was not so much in this section was not so much members contributing to these funds. It was we're getting some money from the local governments for these membership assistance programs and survivors funds. And is the city and the county, are they, it's obvious, it's obviously gonna look very funny if we identify them as a secondary donor for a political campaign when they obviously should not be doing that. So it's not so much the members, it's the city contributions, and Mr. Jackson identified two categories. One is he was clearly able to figure out that the membership, I'm trying to remember, one of them, the member support was in the contractual bargaining agreement and therefore not a donation. And then there appear to be other funds that the city or the county may give to the union to administer for charitable purposes that might not be contractually required, and the city might be voluntarily doing that to support the survivors of firefighters or their dependents, injured firefighters. And to me, and it's, I think we're running out of time today, but I think it goes more back to the purpose of the rule, or the purpose of the ordinance is to prevent straw donors and concealment. And it goes to the facts. And if our simple rule that if you give money and it frees up money, then you're making a donation, it may be more fact dependent than that. But for these city monies, if the firefighters union might be supporting these functions with dues, but since the city is supporting it with dues. But the question was, did the city intend to free up funds for political campaigning? The answer probably is no. So, if I don't know, Mr. Watson, we need to be out of here in 2 minutes.
I believe we do.
Okay, so what do we, so our options are either to adopt it as presented, to ask the, I don't think we've given Mr. Jackson enough specification to change it much. We could take it up again. I mean, we're giving the requester is not going to have an answer for 30 days if we delay. What's the pleasure of the board?
I would be ready to approve it, in part because it is very similar to the opinion we reviewed last time, and so I'm comfortable with it.
Is there a second? I'm going to take that as a motion. I took it as a motion. Sure. Is there a second?
I will formally move to adopt the advisory opinion as presented.
Second.
Ms. Sullivan. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Nay. The chair says nay. We say.
How many? No.
Okay, so it passes with 4 in favor, 3 against, and if
Just for the record, who?
it is, the nays are Chairman Marks, Member Kelly, and Member Green.
Thank you.
And do we, Ian, we follow the same rules as, do we follow the rule that Actually, I want to change my vote. I change my vote to a yay, and a person who votes in the affirmative can bring something back for reconsideration at a subsequent meeting. Okay, so chair changes his vote to a yay.
Point of interest, Chair Mark, so you can certainly bring it up for reconsideration at a subsequent meeting, but the opinion will have been issued to the request.
It will be issued and be in effect. Right, and just my intent is to maybe bring this back and refine it, but I think the answer is okay for answers the question presented here, but I think could use some more refinement and some more time. With that, yeah, I need a motion to adjourn. Ms. Caffrey?
Oh. Am I seconding the motion?
No, you're moving it.
Okay, oh, sorry. Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Say, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.